And if you shut up, you just might learn something. Welcome to Elevate and Illuminate, the Empowerment Podcast. I am Jamarcus Fields, your host. I am the founder and executive director of Iron Sharpens Iron WAST, that is WAST for We Are Stronger Together, where our mission is to empower and equip at risk youth and justice involved individuals for successful reintegration into society. Welcome back, everybody. I missed doing this last week, but as most of you know, we were doing the Ironclad seminar virtual webinar, 3 day, where we had an amazing time, amazing conversation, had some wonderful guests who joined us. And for the first time, we did our inaugural women's panel, um, where our tonight's guest was a guest on the women's panel. And she stained a lot of people's brain. And ironically, it wasn't necessarily planned like this, but she's tonight's guest. So I'm going to digress for a moment and allow her the chance to introduce herself. Floor is yours.
Good evening, Marcus. Thank you for having me. My
Yes,
name is
yes.
Lisa Campbell. I live in Indianapolis. I am a justice involved individual. I did just over 3 years in the DOC, and I've been home for just over 3 years and out here living life as I should.
Living life as you should. So, a little couple housekeeping notes. The chat room is open. So, any questions any of you may have, any comments you want to add to the conversation, feel free to get in the chat room and add to the conversation, or just bond amongst yourselves over the conversation. Like, do what you like. The chat room is definitely open. Um, and to find out more about Iron Sharpens Iron, always visit our website, Iron Sharpens Iron, WAST.org, where you can find out all the things that we got going on, find opportunities to sign up as a volunteer. We are also seeking new board members at this particular time. So make sure you hit the website, check us out, and hit that smash button on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And let's get it. Uh, so interesting fun fact to start the conversation. Like I'm about to just jump right off the diving board. I'm gonna address the elephant in the room, even though no one else may even know that there's an elephant in the room. Um, so me and Lisa met years ago while I was incarcerated, when I was better known as Blue. Um, a lot of people don't even know who Blue is.
Back
I
when I was
left
out
him,
boogie.
L Boogie and Blue. I left Blue in the penitentiary when I came home. But it's crazy because at the end of the ladies' night on the seminar, I made the comment that it's surprising that we didn't become co-defendants. And I know a few people, like I've been asked, by those closest to me, like, what did I mean by that? Because they didn't know. My own wife didn't know the story. So
Hmm.
I had to explain to her. Um, Me and Lisa met trafficking drugs inside the prisons. Um, it was crazy how we met. Then we would fall off, reconnect like years later. Um, and here recently, I went to we are both members of the Validus movement here in Indianapolis. So we went to a meeting one evening, and I was speaking afterwards. Uh, this little lady walked up to me. It was like, "You don't even remember me, do you?" So I remembered the voice, but I couldn't place it. And I'm like, "No." She's like, "It's Lisa." And I think I almost took a lap around the theater, um, just to see, like when I looked at her, as well as when I look at myself in the mirror, like I see the hand of God. Knowing where we both came from, like I never would have thought that I would have run into her in that space doing this work. And we both be doing the same work to where our missions align. So I have to start off the podcast by one saying that I'm proud of you. I see the growth in you. When I look at you, like I can see the happiness, I can see the contentment, I can see peace
Yes.
all in you, like, and I know what that looks like, so I know what I'm looking at.
Absolutely.
So good job.
That was a full circle moment when I got to that Validus meeting that night. I looked around the room, and there were so many people there that had been previously justice involved. And it was like, I looked over there and I'm like, I was in prison with her. I used to sell him drugs. And then you got up there and spoke, and I was like, oh my, I used to traffic drugs with him. Like, we had a business partnership. That was definitely a full circle moment. And I was like, as I sat there, I was like, God put me in this room for a reason. This is a full circle moment in his time.
Absolutely. Oh wow. So in your introduction, you stated that you were justice involved, that you
Mhm,
served 3 years
mhm,
in the DOC.
mhm.
Um, until the day I ran into you at Vallis, I didn't even know that you had been incarcerated.
Oh,
So
really?
allow me to ask, what was the incarceration about?
Trafficking. I had dealing charges, of course, dealing charges. Conspiracy, and they also gave me a gang enhancement due to saying that I was the head of a trafficking organization, trafficking drugs into the Department of Corrections. And they gave me that because of a previous case. In 2017, I turned myself in when I found out I had a warrant for a DOC case, and I fought that until 2018. And that was through Marion County. I got 6 years DOC suspended, 4 years probation, and I was on probation for 135 days when I was arrested on a sealed warrant through Madison County. And then I was being held on a atrociously high bond. There was no way I was ever going to make bond, so I spent 8 months in the county jail pre-trial, and both the cases were for the same thing, same charges essentially. Marion County just gave me a level 4 and a level 5, and Madison County, I pled down to a 4, a 5 in the enhancement,
Okay.
and I'm still on
Uh,
paper. I just finished my Marion County paper on the 11th. And this last week on the 19th, I went to meet my new probation officer for Madison County, and to start our 4-year relationship.
oh wow. They
Got
got
a
a lot
lot
of post.
have a lot
They
of
got a
papers.
lot of post incarceration out of you.
Yes, lots, lots.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wow. Well, it's all good because I see the amazing work you're doing and
Oh,
the new creature that you are. So
absolutely.
it's all good. Give them front row seats to the power of God.
And I never had one violation, not anything whatsoever. In fact, they were so non-concerned about me in Marion County. I asked for to travel one time to Florida. I sent my PO an email, and she said, "I haven't been your probation officer for a year." I said, "Oh, I had no idea." And so she said, "Well, I'll go ahead and turn this into the judge for you." That's how they were concerned. I was on the type of probation where I go and give my fingerprint at the kiosk. And so I'm
Okay,
hopeful that that's what I'll do for Madison County too, but I'll jump through whatever hoops they need me to, because I'm not out here doing anything wrong anyway.
absolutely. Say that then.
Yeah.
Um, so how was your experience in prison? Yeah, I know
Um,
I know it was your first time, and like you've done a lot of visiting.
yes. Yes.
How was the experience? How was the transition?
Um, well, in the county jail, when I first Marion County's county jail, when I went there for my first case, it was I was in and out in 18 hours. That was nothing. And then it was an eye opener though when they hold you in that drunk tank. And so then I put that all behind me because I paid my bond money with drug money, and I was on my way. Seriously, so, and I was
Mhm.
back to square one, on my way on the road doing what I was doing. And then when I got taken into custody the second time, it was a little bit of a different story. I had a very high bond. I went directly to my stuff was already on the news before I'd even been booked into the jail. So they had me on a in a cell by myself. I stayed in the drunk tank for only about an hour, and then I went to a cell by myself, and I was in there for 4 days before they sent me to a lockup. And they said that it was just their policy, due to the type of case I had, for a correctional facility, that I would stay in lockup. I ended up staying in lockup my entire time I was in the county jail pre-trial, and then I went to prison. As soon as I got there, before I was even strip search, IA met me at the back gate and they're like, "We know who you are. We know what you're about. We want to know what your intentions are." Well, you know me, my mouth is really slick. And I'm like, I'm here to do my MF time. That's what I'm about to do. Send me on my way. And so then I went to what they call, I don't even think they have it anymore at Rockville. It's called RDU, and it's residential detention unit. It's kind of like a lockup for bad people. And so I stayed there for several months until I was classified, until I realized with my classification, I didn't even have enough points to stay at that facility. And so I got a hold of my attorney, had him get me, I had her rather get me sent out of there, and I got shipped to another facility. And I'm not your typical offender in prison. A lot of
No.
people, yeah, a lot of people were very surprised. In the county jail, they thought I was 60 days in, and they said because I had all my teeth. I heard every type of everything. They were calling around, having their people try to find out why I was in jail. And I heard one girl, her name was Shaylee. She said, "This girl's got all of her teeth. There's no reason she should be in jail. And she's in here for drug charges, whatever." It was the truth. It's the truth. I told them, have your people check my case. That's what I'm really in here for. And so, a lot of times when I was just like really low key. When I was in prison, I just became a microwave chef and read, and that's all I did. And all the officers were kind of like, "What are you in prison for?" Because I was very cooperative, and I just didn't get into any trouble. And my prison time was actually not hard. You know what I'm saying? It was hard because I missed my family. I had a little grandson. He was 5 years old at the time. I missed him. I'd been in a relationship for a long time. I was, that's the stuff that I was missing. Plus, 12 weeks prior to my incarceration, my son was killed. And so, I went into prison with a whole different mindset than a lot of people. Being incarcerated was not of the utmost importance to me. I was grieving the loss of my child. And so,
Wow.
and really, I said on your podcast last week, there's not always a negative consequence to prison. I took that time to grieve. And I had a lot of positive come out of that because I was not in a really good mental headspace when I went to prison. And, so I utilized that time to just better myself. And I know that's probably what everybody should do, but it's a conscious effort. It's a very self reliant effort for you to change your life and change your thinking and change your priorities when you're in there. And that's exactly what I just chose to do. And I knew that at the end of the day, I didn't have anybody to depend upon but myself. So I had to get it together. And selling drugs, and there's no way I was ever going to get back into a prison again to trafficking drugs. So I
Right.
had to get my life together, and that's what I chose to do. And I really had to do a lot of self examination when I was in prison.
Hmm.
I knew from when as you have nothing but time to sit and do self reflection. And I didn't qualify for any time cuts due to my educational history, my job history, that kind of stuff, because they were changing things around where if you had certain educational things, had done things educationally, you didn't qualify for a time cut. So the only time cut I could get was for RWI, recovery while incarcerated. Well, anybody knows me knows I don't drink. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. I've never even taken a prescription drug I wasn't supposed to take. I am about to be 52, and I've never even drank since my 21st birthday. Sold a lot of drugs, never did any. And so when they were doing my assessment for that, I lied to them and said, because my son had just died, and my doctor did give me some Xanax because I was having some anxiety. And so she asked me if I took too many of them. I said, yes, I did. So that got me in the RWI program. So as I said, that RWI program, just wanting a time cut just to get out of prison early, I really realized how much of the part of the problem I was. Not
Mm.
necessarily to these ladies, but it was glaring me in the face that I was a part of the problem. And I knew upon my release from prison, I had to do everything I could to be a part of the solution. When you sit in there and you listen to these people who have true addiction issues and have lost everything, even themselves, their children, their lives, everything, they've lost their freedom, everything they could ever have. They lost everything they have to the prison system, to incarceration, and I realized what a contributing factor I was to that. And I used to be the woman, believe it or not, nobody would believe this. You would know this, Marcus. Misty's on here. Misty would know this. Some other people would know this. If you didn't pay what you were supposed to in the prison system, I was the one calling your grandma and threatening her. I would call your mom and I would go meet your mom to collect that money. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember, like here I am. I used to tell these people that that I was going to harm their family or whatever. And helping them further their addiction. And that's such a humbling and embarrassing simultaneously experience when you realize how much of the problem you really were and helping people ruin
Wow.
their lives. And I'll never ever do that again.
Wow. Okay. Um, so I wanted, because you talked about the self-reflection
Hmm.
when you went in. So listening to you, I can tell, you know, a large part because of the loss of your son, that you clearly went in with a different mind frame.
Hmm.
Because after doing time, and I always tell individuals, like, while I go inside facilitating programming, that if you haven't had a man in the mirror conversation, you're not ready to go home,
That's the truth.
because we all have to have that moment while we're
Yes.
incarcerated. Um, because a lot of us, as you stated, have lost ourselves.
Hmm.
We don't know who we are.
Hmm.
We've gotten so far away from our truth that we don't even remember who we are.
Hmm.
You know, I was going through an identity crisis
Hmm.
going into prison. And the crazy thing about that was, while I'm in the midst of my own identity crisis, I'm a leader. So I'm leading a whole bunch of people down the wrong path
Absolutely.
because I don't want to face my truth, my issues, my problems. And it wasn't until I did and began to take accountability that
Mhm.
I was able to finally get back on the right path and start to rebuild my life.
Sure.
Um, so I was glad to hear you point that out. Um, Patrick said in the comments that a lot of us were rescued rather than arrested.
Absolutely.
Praise God. Um,
This was a period of restoration for me.
Absolutely.
But I got to sit
Absolutely.
down and really restore my mind and revamp my thinking because I was so far off, so far off. And and anybody else who I knew was so far off on the wrong path. I was a cheerleader. Misty's in here. Misty and I were selling drugs together, buying drugs together on the street. We used to make trips to go re-up together. I would go buy the stuff she would buy for me. She would send it her way. I would do my thing. We probably should have been co-defendants as well. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I would hype her up on her mission and put her on game. She'd do the same thing for me. We were thick as thick could be, and now both of us want nothing to do with that life.
Absolutely.
Both of us went away and did some really good reframing of our thoughts.
Hey, praise God.
Absolutely.
So we have a question in the chat
Mhm.
also. So how did you keep your mind, how did you keep your mental state?
Well, primarily a lot of prayer. I chose not to partake in the drama that happens, especially in a women's prison. I had to really just get alone with myself. And I attended church. I was in church 7 days a week. The only service I didn't go to was Wicca. Anytime the church was open, I was there. I wasn't sure what was happening over in that Wicca thing, so I didn't go over there. I wasn't sure about that. And but anytime the church was open, I was in church. Just a lot of self-reflection. And I was starting to have terrible anxiety. And so I did have to, one of my bunkies said, "Hey, like you're having trouble sleeping. You really need to go see mental health." And it was just a part of the grieving process. I did go see mental health and I had to get on some Celexa. And within a few days, that resolved my anxiety issues. And even to this day, I can barely cry. So, it's just, sometimes I think I would like to go off the medication, but I'm still really grieving the loss of my child, which is something I think that I'll do for the rest of my life. And so I was
Mhm.
never an advocate for mental health meds unless it was like a serious mental illness. But I realize, that's what's helped me through. That's what helped me keep my sanity.
Wow, understandable.
Yeah.
So going into the prison, like
Hmm.
once you got there,
Hmm.
what was something that like surprised you about prison? Like we hear so many stories. You see these
Hmm.
TV shows, what prison is like, and and then you're talking to a lot of us inside the men's prison,
Hmm.
so you know how violent our environment can
Hmm.
be. Like, what was something that once you got there that just totally surprised you?
Something that really surprised me was I was around a lot of ladies who had done significant amounts of time, 20, 30, 40, one woman 50 years. And
Wow.
it was very surprising to me that, in men's facilities, sometimes they treat each other per their conviction.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so if you have a
Right.
child case or certain types of cases, women really stick together. A lot of that stuff is kind of overlooked. Like you might know who's who and who's done what, but I was very surprised at women are very forgiving toward other women, really, because and I was in during COVID, so we got LexisNexis on the tablets.
Hmm.
And so you could search anybody's case. You know what I'm saying? And my primary thing was I need to know who's a snitch because you ain't about to I'm not breaking bread with no snitches. That was my mindset, you know what I'm saying? And so
Right.
somebody would that was my first question I'd ask everybody. If somebody moved in my room or whatever, be like, "What county you from? What's your case about?" If they wouldn't talk, then I'm on the phone. I'm calling my people and they're going to tell me who you are and what you're about, and I'm going to look you up on the line. I'm going to any news article, whatever, because don't be coming asking me for a soup, of soap, nothing. You can't get nothing from me if you have certain cases. You know what I'm saying? If you've harmed a child, I wasn't talking to you. But then I realized, you know what? We all have our own cross to bear. We've all done our own things. A lot of people are in there for things that or they're not even in there for stuff that they did that they didn't get caught for. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's
Hmm.
better than anybody else. You just go in there to do your time. We're all fighting our own personal and internal battles, legally and otherwise. And, it's just one of those things where you just have to overlook it. But I was just very surprised at how forgiving the women are of one another. In fact, one of my bunkies in the county jail, she was in lockup with me there. They were out of lockup beds, so they put her on my floor. And when I started talking to her, she was telling me about her case, and I actually fought her a couple times in the cell over skipbo. I was the skipbo champion, and we ended up seriously, literally fighting over I was like the Madison County skipbo champion, okay? And we would fight over card games at night, playing by the light of the cuff port. And it was just it was crazy. But she was in there on a level one neglect of a dependent resulting in death. And she was very lost. I was scared for her a lot of times, thinking she may not make it through the night because she was suicidal often. And when I read her case, I really wanted to bust her up. But then I'm gonna be honest with you. I send her hot cart meals all the time now. I'm the only family she has. She's been stripped of everything in her life. Her daughter is
Wow.
dead. Her son has been adopted out. Her family has left her. I'm all she has in this world, and I'm going to stand by her. So, talking about people overlooking things, I've overlooked, she got 40 years and her boyfriend got life. He's the one who killed the child and she was just basically a witness. But, I'm no better than anybody else to judge anybody on what they've done.
Mm, powerful,
I see Raymond
powerful,
Johnson asking me how
powerful.
much time did I do? I did 3 years and 4 months. 3 years and 4 months. Not a significant amount compared to a lot of people I know, but it was enough for me to turn my life around.
And that's what it's about.
Yes.
I often say, some people can go to the drunk tank for 24 hours and it'll completely change their life. They'll never
Yes.
do nothing again a day in their life.
Yes.
Some people it takes 3 years, Some people it takes
Yes.
26.
Mhm. And that's why I had said last week on your podcast that when I got to jail, or I got to prison rather, there was no sense in me crying. I did everything they said I did, plus so much more. So many things I didn't get caught for. I should have been in prison a long time ago. And I just was like, God, I'm going to remain content in all situations. Count it all joy. I'm not crying about nothing. And I never shed a tear because I was guilty. I felt like I didn't have a reason to be in there blaming somebody else, misplacing blame when I was fully to blame. There's lots of people who want to blame everybody in there, from the prosecutor to the boyfriend to whoever. I knew what I did. I was fully cognizant of everything that I had partaken, and that's something else that kind of surprised me. You asked some things that surprised me. You talk to so many people in there. This is for women's facilities. And I want to say upwards of 90%. I know there's at least one person in here who's done time in a women's facility. Um, Upwards of 90%, when you ask women, what are you in here for? The story always starts with, I was with this dude, my boyfriend this, my husband that, I helped my boyfriend did this. A lot of these charges are due to codependent relationships and toxic relationships. And not saying that the women weren't complicit in what they did, but a lot of women out there were searching for love in all the wrong places, and ended up with men talking them into doing all kinds of things. You know, Everybody knows who, Swisher never talked me into doing anything. We were any kind of bullshit he was on, I was on. Everybody knows that. Whatever he wanted to do, I was with it 100%. But as far as that goes, then he got shipped to another facility, so I just kept keeping on with the business. And I
Right.
had so much business and so many facilities, that I was I was doing it way too big. I was too big for my own britches, really.
You you was cold at it though. I
Yeah,
gotta give you that.
yeah.
Um, that's crazy. So now post incarceration,
Mhm.
we out here, we doing this work.
Mhm.
What what is your eye on? Like everybody has a why,
Mhm.
and I like to say that it's not just because we were incarcerated and did time. That somewhere through this journey we found some injustices, some some certain things that we just felt weren't right, and we decided to be a voice for that particular cause. Like, what do you see as the areas of what are your areas of focus
My
when it
areas
comes to this work that we do?
Reentry, for sure, reentry. Something that we all, as just citizens and not necessarily even justice involved, we need to lean into the conversation of coming home and finding housing for people post incarceration. You and I had spoke before the podcast aired. Marion County, as big as it is, does not have opportunities. And a lot of times, the only people that they avail opportunities to, as far as women, are people with substance use disorders or people who have mental health issues. Unfortunately and fortunately, I don't qualify for any of those. It was really hard for me to find a place when I came home from prison. And and so if you can't find a place to live, that contributes to the recidivism rate, and that contributes to homelessness. In Marion County, the statistics say that if you have been incarcerated in prison, you're 85% more likely to become homeless and part of the recidivism rate. So, those
Mhm.
numbers are high. Those numbers are too high. Marion County and their reentry coalition should be embarrassed of that when we've got all these empty properties and apartment buildings and so much money going out to reentry. The Validus movement recently uncovered that the reentry money that the state gives away, do you know where it's been going, Marcus?
I do not.
Josh found out it's been going to county jails, not to correctional facilities. Reentry
County
is,
jails.
yes, a lot of the money has been spent in county jails. What do county jails offer in terms of reentry? They give out some condoms and some naloxone when people are leaving. Now Marion County has the desk where they have resources, but as far as the helping find housing, helping with other resources, they're not doing. And that's pretty much across the state. But a lot of that reentry money that has been earmarked for reentry or for the state has been distributed amongst county jails, not DOC. And DOC is really, really hurting. I was court ordered to go to a halfway house. They wanted me to go to a halfway house in Madison County. The only halfway houses in Madison County are for those with substance use disorders. So I automatically didn't qualify. And so then they found another one for me in Kokomo. My counselor was supposed to call weekly and keep my bed open. I got out of prison at midnight. I had to report to this place. They said by 3 p.m. the next day. Come to find out, my counselor had stopped calling like 3 months prior to my release. And so I didn't have a bed. Parole gave me an emergency stay with my son. I got to stay with him for a while, which they had already denied his placement. My son works in law enforcement. I couldn't be around firearms. But they knew that, I wasn't really that big of a risk, but they went ahead and let me stay with him. And so then I found myself homeless. I slept on Misty's couch for a couple days. I slept here for a couple days. I slept there for a couple days because I had to be in Marion County. So it's it really starts in the prison system. When you get slipped through the cracks there and they don't have a follow-through plan with you, it makes it hard. So my why is I don't want anybody coming home and feeling like they don't have resources, they don't have anybody they can turn to. I don't want anybody to come home and feel like it's easier in prison. I think a lot of times people have come home after years of incarceration and been like, I didn't have to deal with this in prison. I had somebody tell me one time, I felt like if I could just go back for like 90 days, I would know what I needed to do when I came home next time and I would have a better go round. You know what I'm saying? I don't want anybody to feel like incarceration is the best alternative for them because in some respects it's easy, but it's not ideal for anybody. I just want people to know that there should be resources available. That's why I'm involved with Validus. I'm involved with other volunteer mentorship opportunities. Mentoring ladies who have been, recently released from prison. And in fact, my job has a mentorship program, and I do. I have several mentees through my job, and most of them have previous incarceration. A lot of them are on paper. I got people on ankle bracelet. The whole gamut of the correctional facility. Any entity of anything post incarceration you can think of, one of my mentees deals with it. And I just try to help them navigate the system. Some of them, I have one gentleman who did 23 years. He could come home and get his CDL, but he didn't even know how to open up a bank account. So, I took him to help him open up a bank account. Some of them don't know about signing up for insurance. There's just a lot of people fall through the cracks. And I don't want anybody to feel so hopeless that there's not enough resources out here to help them. So that's my why. I have lots of whys. And I care about, I have a gentleman right now who's at Westville, has an old injury. He needs wound care. I've been calling for the last 2 days trying to get him medical attention. He's somebody I've never even met face to face. He's one of Swisher's friends. So, I've been trying to get him some medical help. Nobody should be in there and be without medical help when they absolutely desperately need it.
Wow. And that was definitely a mouthful. And that mirrors my passion. That's why I do the work that I do. That's what made me start Iron Sharpens Iron. And it was going through my own reentry journey. And just realizing how inadequate the reentry process is.
Absolutely.
And coming home, and I was fortunate to have a strong support system to where a lot of the issues that most individuals coming home from prison, I didn't have. But I still lacked lived experience.
Sure.
So there still were a lot of issues that I had. And I'm like, wow, like if somebody don't take the initiative to be an advocate and to help, a lot of people in trouble.
That's
And
right.
at that particular time, I didn't know the numbers. Once I got active, then I began to realize that 72% of the prison population recidivates and
Absolutely.
within 3 years of
Yes.
being released from prison.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wow. And then that number increases. after 3 years.
Yes.
You would think it decreases after that, but it actually increases after that. And I'm like, and then we look at, like, when we talk about numbers and we're looking at data, 90% of the people that are employed defy recidivism.
Yes.
But how many people are actually getting employed? How
Well,
many people are actually in a place of having a place to lay their head,
absolutely. If
to
you don't
be
have a place to lay
comfortable
your head.
going to work? Like,
Exactly. Exactly.
so we're talking 90% of 2%.
Yes. I fortunately I held my employment for 14 years with before I went to prison. And when I came home, I went right back to work there. They had just started a second chance initiative, and I was one of the first felons they hired. And it was a great opportunity. And now I work for Indigo. I have a CDL license, and now I actually work for Indigo teaching people CDL skills and helping them get their license and everything to become a new operator. And
Okay.
which is a great opportunity, because with them being a second chance employer, we get a lot of people who are justice involved. And I let them know, this is a great stepping stone for you. Utilize this, stay with it and utilize it, because even if driving a city transit bus isn't your thing, utilize it for driving a dump truck, a trash truck, whatever else it is you desire to do. This is an invaluable skill that somebody can't take from you. And a lot of employers out there who are probably just in it for the tax break, to be honest,
Yep.
they are willing to hire people who are justice involved for the tax break, but also have that skill. So I tell them, use this to your advantage. But I was very surprised at how many people I have in my mentorship there that are sleeping in their cars, that are
Hmm.
living in hotels, that are currently displaced in some way or another, or being separated from their children due to not being able to have their kids with them because of their living situation, because of them being justice involved, because they can't find a place being a felon. And that is disgusting. There is no reason why people who are able bodied and working and have a means to pay rent, people won't rent to them. And that's why I'm constantly on the search for private landlords and second chance job or housing opportunities. I was um, I was blessed that I got with uh, I forget what that place is called. Pace had referred me to them. They house felons, and I got an apartment, and I was there for the first 2 years. I was home, actually. Wasn't in the best area, but I've survived worse, so I really didn't care. But my apartment was cute, it was clean, and those people loved me over there, so I didn't have any problem with where I was. So, but a lot of people are finding themselves going back to prison due to what it stems back to is they don't have a stable living situation. And parole sometimes will violate you. You don't have a stable living situation. We don't care that you're working, but we're going to violate you because you don't have a stable living situation, which is
Right.
not fair either.
Not at all.
Hmm.
Especially when, like, and they know that the resources just aren't there.
Yes,
Like, incarceration is the second leading cause of homelessness
absolutely.
here in Indiana. So,
Yes.
like, they know this. Like, there's been countless times that I've sat down at the state house, and listened to testimony in the Senate
Hmm.
about different House bills. And I know my first time down there, I was listening to all these DOC people and uh, housing authority people, and they giving all these numbers about the percentage of individuals that come home and have places to stay. And
Makes you wonder where they got those numbers, because they can't be accurate.
they made them up, because nobody's, like, when you're sitting in front of the Senate, like, they're not questioning none of that stuff.
Hmm.
These people are passing and making policy and legislation, and, like, they don't know the effect that this is having, but they're sitting there listening to these skewed numbers.
Hmm.
So I went out in the hallway to the kiosk, and I hurried up and signed up as a witness to give testimony to the bill, and I went back in there and debunked everything they just said. Like,
Hmm.
with all I just come from prison. Like, them numbers they giving y'all are not true.
Absolutely not.
Like, and I challenge you to ask them where they got this data from, and to show you literally where they got this data from.
Yes.
Because I can sit up here and give you some conflicting numbers just off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna do no follow-up and no research and figure that out. But that, I realize that that's where a lot of the problem lies.
Yes.
I get asked a lot, after doing all that time I did, how can I go back in prison?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, how can I not?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
especially at this point, how can I not?
Mm-hmm.
Because no one is speaking up about this stuff.
It's
And they
our
just
moral
doing what they want to
obligation
do.
to reach back. I feel like if you've really turned your life around, it is your moral obligation to reach back for those who are still behind.
Facts.
I don't care if it's to give hope, to light the way, to give resources, what in whatever way you can. I feel like it's innate in me. Like I cannot not reach back. Like I've been through the fire unscathed, thank God. But so many people will come home and not be as fortunate. And I feel like it's our obligation to do so.
True.
That's part of my why. Like I need to reach back so that people come home filled with hope. People come home trying to do the right thing. They get involved in a mentorship program prior to their release so that, trusted mentors. I'm affiliated with trusted mentors. I need for people to know that, I'm going to take you to make sure you've got everything you need. Whether it's tangible or whether it's just emotional support. I'm going to make sure you get whatever you need because you don't need to come home and feel like you're coming home to nothing.
Absolutely.
So many people
Not
do.
to not to mention 90, I think last I saw, like 91.2% of the prison population will return to society,
Yes.
meaning they have an out date and
Yes.
will return to society.
And
So
that's why
once
I
you
said
get
we
back
need
out
to lean
here,
into that conversation. People need to know that your neighbors, the people who aren't fond of the justice involved, that they're your neighbors.
exactly,
We need to make a more welcoming environment, something for them to come home to, so that they don't feel the need to be a part of that recidivism rate. I don't know why people don't really lean into that idea because that's what's important. You want to be concerned about who your neighbors are, get involved.
get involved. Yeah.
Yes.
'Cause I'm like, I know when I was on my way home, and I was, I had a season of frustration, and I remember writing my my judge, and I was telling my judge that, about the war on drugs and the war on gangs that the state of Indiana had in the
Hmm.
90s. And I'm like, during that period, you know, they sent a whole bunch of people to prison,
Yes.
um, with some nice lengthy sentences, right?
Hmm.
But I'm like, and I'm telling the judge, like, even if you gave us the maximum sentence allowed by the law during that period, we're either already home or on our way home.
Yes.
And that's a whole lot of individuals. We talking war on
Mass.
drugs, war on gangs. So you talking some gang bangers, you talking some killers, you talking some
Yes.
robbers. You
Mhm.
like, what are y'all doing to help prepare us for society? And like once I came home, and now that I've shifted into citizen mode, I'm like, we have a moral responsibility at this point
Absolutely.
when they're coming home. Like,
Hmm.
and I told the judge in the letter, I could be your neighbor tomorrow.
Hmm.
Would you want me coming home not prepared for society, and potentially you come home one day and I'm sitting in your house?
Hmm.
Like, when does your conscience kick in?
Exactly.
I understand this is a business. We understand that
Hmm.
incarceration is the business,
Yes.
and the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do.
Hmm.
We understand that, but at what point does your moral compass tell you that we have to do something?
I question the same thing because they're very unprepared. I left prison July 1st of 2021. And prior to my incarceration, I stayed in close touch with the streets. They never approved anybody to be on my visitation list due to my case, but I stayed on the phone all the time. So, I stayed in close contact with people and was always trying to reach out and figure out what's going on the outside. But they did nothing to prepare me. And it was the world looked a little different during COVID when I came home from prison. You know what I'm saying? No more 24-hour Walmart. You can't. I had to go through the drive-through at Wendy's. That kind of stuff. Things had changed so much, and even in 3.5 years. But the prison as a whole, their reentry program that they had for women when I came home was
Mhm.
literally nothing. 2 days of just ludicrous talk and a sheet that they handed out with outdated resources on it. That's what it was. So, you know what? Anytime I've gotten any resources since I've been home, my counselor and the unit team manager at the prisons where I was at, I email them to them still to this day. I may not have everything for every county, but anytime I come across a resource, I email it to them because why wouldn't they have updated resources?
Right.
They just
That's
don't.
why I say it. That's why I say, if not us, who?
Exactly. And
You know.
anybody who's had any hand in the justice system, whether it be justice impacted or justice involved, um, you got to think about what's my role in this? Where can I give back? A lot of people aren't giving back to society in any way because they have the excuse of time or whatever their excuse is. But if you've been impacted by the justice system in some way, like I said, it's our moral obligation to see through that people don't go through the fire like we had to or what other people are having to experience. Some people coming home after years and like you did years and years of incarceration. As much as you try to mentally prepare yourself, the prison failed you miserably.
Yeah.
I just with the amount of time I did, they failed me as well. Thankfully, I had no problem getting a job. Marion County, Pace has relationships with over 200 employers in the city, and I have gathered a lot of information about different people who hire felons and so on and so forth. And so I keep a lot of that information, and I thankfully had no problem getting a job. I had a job almost immediately when I came home, and then I went back to
Right.
my prior work. But some people, they feel like that they're stigmatized, so they don't even start to look for employment because they feel like it's already not available to them. And that's something else that we need to change the conversation on. There are jobs available. It may take some time, it may take some searching, but there are definitely jobs available. If with my charges, and some of my mentees, they have charges. You hear me?
Right.
And if they can get a job and they're making $30 an hour, anybody can do it. Anybody can do it.
Right.
And they can use me as a reference. You get a check, and so do I. If you use me as a referral, I'll gladly take that referral money, and I'll teach you how to get your CDL.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, you mentioned a couple times the Validus movement.
Yes.
Um, so for those who haven't heard of the Validus movement or are questioning what that is, can you tell them? Can you share what we do in the Validus movement?
It is a branch off of the Black Church Coalition, and what it is basically, we make people angry. We contact lawmakers of,
Absolutely.
on various platforms, and we make them listen to us. Whether it has to do with housing, whether it has to do with law changes, anything reentry related. Last week they had a meeting with some, I was at work, but they had a meeting with some DOC people. They're trying to be heard on where they are lagging in the area of reentry. And Josh, the guy who is the head of the movement, he's an amazing individual, very young. I'm old enough to be his mother, but he is such a dynamic personality. Like, he's one of those people that, like, he's so impassioned by this movement. And when you listen to him talk, he gets your attention, and you know he means business. He's also an organizer for Live Free USA. So there's, the Validus movement is backed by several other movements. They've got some power. Josh knows some people. If you're looking for a movement for post-incarcerated or justice impacted people to become involved in, contact me or Jamarcus. We can tell you how to make it to a meeting. We do committees of housing committees, law committees. We have different committees going on within the movement of people who we call and bug, we call and piss off. However, we can get their attention to tell them, hey, these are some worthy causes that you need to look at. And all are welcome to join in. And so if you want some information on that, we'd be happy to give that.
Absolutely. And in a nutshell, a lot of the issues that we're talking are, we got to get the attention of these policymakers. We gotta start to till the soil up, and starting there and getting their attention, and that's what we do in the Validus movement. Like, we take different initiatives, and we reach out to those individuals, and we shake up the room. We have those tough conversations with them, and we make them answer questions and, like, inform us of what they're doing, what their plans are, what policies are, up next, what impact is that set to have? Can you show us the research you've done that proves what you're trying to do is
Sure.
supposed to work?
I didn't even know that Marion County had a reentry coalition, because what do they do? Nothing. They do nothing. And so when I've contacted them to see what they do, they really couldn't give me any answers, because obviously they're doing nothing. But I've invited them to meetings. I would like for them to come to see what Validus is doing, and I would like to get some answers from them about what is it that you're actually offering to the residents who are reentering Marion County. Because after all, that's what you're getting grant money for. I would like to know what you're doing.
that part.
Yes. And Missy, I see you ask about Zoom meetings. Um, I do know that Josh conducts Zoom meetings simultaneously when these are going on. I don't know how to do that, but I can get an invitation sent to you to your email or through Facebook, and he can send you a link for that. The more the
Yep.
merrier. We need everybody involved that we can get.
Absolutely. There's actually a meeting taking place
Right now.
simultaneous to
Yes.
this podcast,
Yes.
right now, that we both had to miss. Um, but I'm sure they're doing wonderful work over there.
Yes.
As our thoughts are also with them. Um, so we got a few more minutes. So what's next on the horizon for you?
Continue my quest of helping the ladies who are still inside in any way, whether it's a message, a cheeseburger, helping them get in contact with their family, finding family members that are long lost, helping them get the medical needs they need. I'm kind of just, I want to be a voice to anybody who's incarcerated, because a lot of people, as you know, the longer you're in prison, the more apt your family is to fall off, and you don't have any contact with the outside. And, if I can be that one glimpse of the creator on earth, and to step in and fill that gap because somebody needs something. You have lots of people you can depend upon in prison or talk to, but it's nothing like having somebody in the free world who's on your side, who can do anything from research a law to look up some song lyrics. That stuff is invaluable to people. And I'll never forget how I felt in there. So I feel like, I'm going to continue to do that. I love my mentorship roles. I mentorship through a couple of different entities here in the city, including my work. And I pour myself into that, because I feel like if I can change my life around, and I'm no longer chasing that fast money and living a careless lifestyle, I feel like I can lead anybody to make some changes. And it's so worth it. Just so worth it.
Okay, so if someone, I know you mentor through your work,
Uh-huh.
but if someone is listening, or someone that's listening knows someone who's looking for a mentor outside of your work,
Sure.
How do they get in touch with you?
I'm also affiliated with Trusted Mentors, or they can contact you. I help people all over all the time. Like I'll meet you at the library if you need help filling out an application. Last week, I met somebody and helped him fill out for disability. And it was odd. You know, I work in transit, and so I can recognize those yellow headphones a mile away and some New Balance shoes
Hmm.
and a gray sweatsuit. And so, you know, when somebody's fresh out the joint and they're walking around downtown looking lost, I ask them, hey, how can I help you? I recognize this. What do you need? You know, can I point you in some direction? And, you know, one gentleman, I got to talking to him, and you know, he was staying at the mission, but he needed to figure out how to apply for it to get his disability back. I said, meet me at the library, I got you, you know. So I went and helped him apply for that. I just try to help anybody in any way. So I mentorship, I do mentorship responsibilities officially and unofficially. So if there's a way that I can be of service to anybody, you know, who has a need, send them my way. Send them my way.
So yeah, I heard that. She she's available, as am I. So, you know, you've been stripped of I don't have anybody to talk to or to help.
Mhm. We've both been there. We know what it's like. And there's nothing you can say or any situation anybody's ever been through that I haven't already survived. I never give anybody the big eyes. Nothing you can say is going to surprise me or shock me. I handle everything in stride, and we handle it together.
And I second that.
Mhm.
um this has been a very good and enlightening conversation. Um you know, professionally and personally. Just to know, I was curious to know, how it is doing time in there. Just knowing how it is or how it was for me in the men's facility. Um, and that was one of the things, even under the pretense that we met and the
Mhm.
things that we were doing, like, you know, I consider myself a pretty good judge of character
Mhm.
when I meet people. And, I've always thought you were a very honest
Mhm.
and genuine and authentic individual, but like you've always had good energy and a good spirit.
Thank you.
Um, so, and I'm glad that our paths crossed back up again.
Absolutely.
Um,
And in this fashion,
especially, huh,
in this fashion. It's been I
in
I
this
commend
fashion.
you for everything you've done. You know, to see the change. You know, at one point you and I were both so deep into that life that we were kind of relentless in the pursuit of easy money, and weren't really cognizant of our decision making. You know what I'm saying? And it's so
Yeah.
good to live consciously now. I don't have to look over my shoulder about anything. I've never done anybody wrong. Even in business, I used to do fair business. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, my heart is good. My heart is clean. I have a clear conscience, and I hold no ill will against anybody. I'm all about giving back now. And I commend
Yeah.
everything you're doing with Iron Sharpens Iron, the Validus movement, the way you give yourself to people, going back in there after all the years you already done and heading back in there. That is so respectable. And I commend that because not a lot of people want to, as we've heard other people said, that was the last thing I ever wanted to do. I can't wait
Right.
until I can go back in and talk to ladies and tell them I'm here for you. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait until I get that opportunity.
Absolutely. Uh, and I look forward to it. Like I'm excited. I got excited when the thought hit my head, and I'm like, okay, it's time to make this happen. Like, let's go.
Yes.
So yeah, that definitely will be taking place soon. I wanted to ask you before we got off here.
Mhm.
The guy that you were trying to assist with the wound in
Yes.
Westville. Who are you contacting there?
Well, I've started contacting the medical facility there because I've never been able to get to. I started with the shift supervisor, then I went to a captain. I went to, I tried everybody. I sent tons of emails. I've sent all kinds of, messages, and so now I'm trying to. I got to contact central office. Like I have pictures of his leg, not, with an illegal cell phone, of course. But if you've seen these, Marcus, you would be like, what? You know? And he needs help. he really needs some medical help. And Mike was there with him at the facility, and I've been raising hell over this guy's medical situation for the last few months. And they had
Mhm.
treated him at one point, but it's an ongoing wound that he needs serious wound care for, and probably IV antibiotics. And he's a guy, he's been down a long time. He's got like a 96 number. He knows, he really doesn't have anybody on the outside. Michael's known him for years. So that's why I was like, I got to look out for this guy. And so I'm really reaching out to anybody who will talk at this point. Medical is hanging up on me now. So that's why I'm trying to call central office medical and to try to see who I can get a hold of at central office to help this gentleman. But when you and I get off, I'll give you his name and I'll send you pictures so you see exactly what he's dealing with.
Okay. 'Cause I definitely want to try to help with that. So
Yes.
I'll get on some stuff on my end and see what we can make shape.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so again, thank you for coming on tonight. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your your uh your transparency. Um, just thank you for being you.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there are, a lot of people who have already been impacted by that, who appreciate it, a lot more who don't know. I'm sure a lot of the guests tonight were enlightened by your story, um, as well as your heart. So I appreciate you. Um, I salute you. Roosevelt
Hey, Shaky.
also was in the chat, said you did
Sure.
great. You did a great job, Lisa. And I know you're so genuine with your words and work now.
Thank
Salute.
you.
We also gotta thank you for your service.
Love you too, Darvis.
Yeah, so like the impact is real. So I appreciate you.
Sure.
Um,
Anybody
thank
who
you,
would like
every
to get a hold of me, feel free to give out my contact information to anybody, because I might have some resources, somebody to talk to, whatever anybody needs. If they've been justice impacted in some way or another, feel free to give out my information. It's a free for all. I don't care who has it.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you everybody who tuned in tonight. We appreciate y'all. Again, you can always check out the website Iron Sharpens Iron, WAST.org, to follow us. Check out our calendar, see what we got going on, opportunities to volunteer. We are also seeking board members at this particular time. So definitely thank you. I see you, Mom. I'll make sure I get her information to you.
Gotcha.
And we'll see y'all again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, y'all have a good evening, blessed week.
Peace
Love
and
is love.
blessings. Peace and blessings. Have a great
Peace
night.
and blessings. Good night.